Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Martin Simon, Assistant Town Attorney. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the Planning Department. We are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you're requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. Excuse me, we have to get everything on the record, please? Thank you. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings or mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you will be asked to go to the podium where you'll state your name and address for the record and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 2 ways to find out about your case. You can call the planning office tomorrow afternoon, or you can wait to be notified by mail. Yeah, we're good.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18866, Christopher Antonacci, 18 Landing Meadow Road, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Landing Meadow Road, 739 feet west of Tyler Road. The property is owned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum road frontage from 40 feet to 0, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 60 to 39 feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 100 feet to 83 feet, for a proposed 3,765 square foot, 2-story single-family dwelling with 658 square foot attached garage.
Just give me You have to go to the...
You have to go to the microphone.
Good evening.
Hi,
Hi,
Christopher Antonacci
Christine Antonacci.
at 18 Landing Meadow.
Okay, fine, thank you. And you are here tonight?
I believe we're here for the frontage and the backage of the house before it's built. There was a question regarding it. The way that they had it on the survey, I believe, was facing Landing Meadow, but the house is supposed to be facing the private driveway, not Landing Meadow.
Correct.
Anything else
No,
you'd like
that's
to
it.
tell us?
No,
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
I think so.
No, thanks.
Planning?
No questions, but I do just want to bring up one issue. Some of the neighbors were concerned about stormwater runoff and flooding issues because it is a sloped area in that area. The chairman and I were both there yesterday morning to do an inspection on the site, and there is a rather severe downward slope down towards Landing Meadow Road. So my question for you would be, how do you plan on handling any on-site stormwater or drainage issues so that the water is not running off your property onto somebody else's who's downhill?
Well, what I'm going to do is, obviously, I'll bring that to the architect, and then we'll have to come up with some sort of, I guess, a game plan.
I believe he was gonna put some kind of drainage onto the house.
Yeah,
as
nothing
well.
has, I think, been,
Yeah, we have to add that
Yeah.
on to the plans, I believe.
You're gonna put dry wells in.
we'd have to put
Yeah,
dry
yeah.
wells, yes, yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else, please?
That's it?
No? Sabrina?
DEW has the following comments. The subject parcel is located within the boundaries of the town's local waterfront revitalization program. It is the recommendation of this department that the BZA withhold any decision on this matter pending the issuance of a LWRP consistency determination.
All right. Okay, is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? All right, come on up, sir. If you could just sit down, please. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Could you state your name and address, please?
Yep.
Spell your last name so we get it correct on the record.
Yes, my name is John Morena, 6 Tyler Road. Last name is Morena, M-O-R-E-N-A.
Thank you.
I am speaking on behalf of the residents surrounding the property at 18 Landing Meadow. And we have a couple concerns, questions I'd like to bring up. First one is, what documents and permits are required prior to deforestation and temporary road installation when building within the river corridor region? That's our first question. The second question is, what is the inspection order and schedule when building in this region? What are the minimum indigenous vegetation requirements to be maintained by the square foot percentage of the total area when the building in this region? What is the allowable percentage of lot clearing? Are the setbacks minimums in the region to be consistent with the existing setbacks for surrounding lots and homes? Collectively, the 11 families listed on the attached petition that own the homes within 200 feet of 18 Landing Meadow Road respectively request setbacks consistent with the existing neighborhoods. That's
All right, could
So-
you just repeat the first one, please?
first one, yeah. What documents and permits are required prior to deforestation and temporary road installation when building within the river corridor region?
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. Blaze, could you help with that?
Some of it, yes, some of it, no. Perhaps Sabrina might be able to answer some of it. There are requirements in the town code when it comes to tree removal on any residentially zoned property. And there's actually two types of residentially zoned property. There's individual lots where a single-family home can be constructed, and then there are lots that are larger that are actually able to be subdivided into smaller lots by creating more homes. Anytime somebody comes to the town with an application for a subdivision, the applicant is not permitted to remove any trees on the property until such time as they have received subdivision approval and they have a tree clearing plan that's been approved by the environmental department. Regarding single-family individual lots, there is a requirement in the code where it says that you are permitted to clear 10 trees per year on any individual single lot. However, I don't know specifically within the LWRP boundary what the requirement is to do any tree removal whatsoever.
What about vegetation?
That would all,
It covers-
it would all be covered, yeah. Any trees, any undergrowth, any vegetation, anything, ground cover.
All right, I think you had a question on lot coverage?
Lot coverage, which I'm assuming you're talking about their floor area or the size of the house. There are requirements in the code. The applicant's property is zoned R43, which is 1 acre zoning, and they are permitted to have a floor area ratio or if you want to call it lot coverage, up to 20% of the total lot area. So if their lot is, I'm just using a rough number, 40,000 square feet, they are permitted 20% of 40,000 square feet, or 8,000 square feet of habitable floor area.
Thank you.
Got another question about inspections.
That might be something that Sabrina has an answer for?
I don't at this time.
Don't know? All right.
Which one was that?
There was a question about what is the inspection schedule requirement? I believe that was the question. I don't know what the requirement is on
Honestly, I don't know.
LWRP.
I'm not very up on the LWRP.
That's town board.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get the answer for you if you call planning tomorrow. Okay, on that one? Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just so that everybody knows, the people who have concerns, the application cannot be decided this evening because this application requires 2 additional approvals from the town in order for the Board of Zoning Appeals to render a decision. They need a review done within the LWRP, which Sabrina explained to everyone when she made her comments. And that is an extensive review by the town. It's required by New York State. And a secret determination cannot be issued until that secret determination has been completed and adopted by the town board. The second part of that is the secret review process, which would begin after the LWRP process has been completed and that has been accepted or approved by the town board. There will not be any decision on this application this evening, and it may actually be a bit of time before there is a decision.
All right. What's up? I don't know. Do you have anything to add or to their concerns or anything?
So, we do have the permit from the DEC, which permits us to remove the tree removal before March 1st of this year. So that's why we removed the trees now.
Okay,
So, just to let everyone be known,
all right.
let that be known, okay?
And you're aware, again, no decision tonight until
Yes, yeah.
all the paperwork
Yeah.
is done.
No worries.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but the way it works is, I ask people to come up. If you don't come up and I bring the applicant back, that's it. He said he was speaking for everybody. But I would let you come up.
My name's Thomas Kading. I live at 16 Landing Meadow with my wife, Allison. Kading, K-A-E-D-I-N-G. Secret approval, is that a process where the DEC determines non-jurisdiction? Is that generally what secret approval is?
Yeah, it's actually, the DEC is the Suffolk County DEC. The secret is actually done by the town environmental department.
Okay.
So, and that is the lead agency for the Board of Zoning Appeals and other boards in the town.
So if they're lead agency, how would the DEC submit a permit for tree removal?
The applicant is responsible for making the application to the DEC
Okay.
and for following up on their review and getting their approval. That's not done through the town.
But the town's lead agency, right?
The town is the lead agency for the environmental review by the town for this board to make a decision on the application.
Okay, and then Sabrina's process, that's yet another process to
Yes.
determine, and that would determine lot clearance? Or maximum lot clearance, minimum lot
Well,
clearance?
their review of the application is environmentally based, and it also is based on the code, the town zoning ordinance. So it's not really their responsibility to determine lot coverage or lot area. That's something that's done through a review by the building department and the planning department, At the time that the applicant submits their application, that determination is made by my department and the building department as to whether or not they have sufficient lot area or if they exceed the amount of FAR they're permitted.
Okay, because I'm confused as to how trees and, there can be lot clearance before you establish the footprint, and before you would establish the allowable footprint,
If,
and how the DEC gives authorization when they deem non-authorization, non-jurisdiction. When I contacted them, I have a letter from them.
if the property falls within the DEC corridor, which
Right.
this property does, they are the lead agency for tree clearing prior to any action being taken by the town or the board. They have the right to make that determination because they are the overseers of the DEC corridor, not the town.
Okay. So then, I'm still a little bit confused, and I'll try to be brief. What Sabrina's, I don't know the acronym, but what, it seems after the fact that we've cleared a lot of trees, and we don't even have a footprint yet, or allowable footprint.
So I think the easiest way to explain it is the SECRA is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. It's an act that the state requires any board that's undertaking making a decision based on an application
Okay.
has to go through the SECRA process, which determines the impacts that it will have on the environment. Prior to that application being submitted and/or acted on, DEC may have jurisdiction over that lot if they wanted to remove trees because there's no application. And like Blaze had said, in the town of Smithtown, if the lot is not subdividable and you own that lot, you can take it down up to 10 trees per year because it's not subdividable. There may be additional requirement under the LWRP that I don't believe anyone here is aware of. But other than that, DEC would be asked to remove trees before an application is acted on before the town.
Okay, and I guess the DEC they must give an overlay as to how many trees can be taken down, or what area? or-
I don't know.
Like, how do you establish what the DEC, you have a copy of the permit?
Excuse me. Sir, you have to address this.
Oh, I'm sorry. So do you, the town, have a copy of the DEC's
It's
determination?
a state agency.
The state agency, okay. That's not part of the jacket, not part of the file?
You can foil that.
Okay. Okay. All right,
Okay,
that's it.
all right, thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Sorry.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18868, Harvinder Palmer, 33 Trescott Path, Fort Salonga. The location of the property is the north side of Trescott Path, 865 feet east of Truxton Lane. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered for slopes greater than 15%, and to permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25% for 5 begun prior large concrete block retaining walls and regrading in the required rear yard.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harvinder Parmar. I reside at 33 Trescott Path in Fort Salonga. I'm in the process of building a retaining wall in my backyard. This wall will provide multiple benefits for me and my neighbors. It will provide safety and privacy for my children and also my neighbors. The wall will also provide space in my backyard for gardening and recreation, and also will hold back the hill from eroding into my neighbor's property over time if there was a superstorm or any act of God event. I want to beautify the area with landscape.
Excuse me, one
Yes.
second, sir. Excuse me in the back. Young ladies. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the interruption, but we have to get everything on the record.
I want to beautify the area with landscaping plants, shrubs, and I'm just trying to improve the look of the area. You know, I want to put basically arborvitaes and spacing and everything, so everything looks nice. And I'm hoping that you will allow me to complete this wall. I'm currently working with engineering in the department and want to make sure that they're satisfied with the end result.
You said you're working with an engineering firm?
Now I'm working with engineering in the town of Smithtown.
Okay, but for this wall,
Mhm.
was it developed by an engineering company?
No, it's less than 4 feet. So it's, from what I understand, under 4 feet, you don't need engineering.
Yeah.
You,
Those are some huge block you're putting up, though.
yes, so they're 2 feet tall, and there's 2 of them, so it would be less than 4 feet. This is what I was told by the building department, that if you go over 4 feet, you need to get it engineered, and if it's under 4 feet, you don't need to get it engineered.
Anyone else have any questions?
Are these the blocks that, these big blocks are the ones that you're proposing?
Yes, so, when I went to get the project for, to a contractor, they recommended getting these blocks, and later on, I found out that when the inspector came, he told me that because they don't look as pretty, you're not really supposed to be using them. But I've been working with Mark in engineering and Hope, so they looked at it and they gave me ideas to make it look, they said it's aesthetically not pleasing, so that was their biggest concern about it. And I told them I'm willing to do whatever they'd like, because now I have all this block on the property, and they're not gonna take it back. So we worked out that, I can put a face on these blocks, so they would look like, they would look prettier, pretty much, and I'm willing to do that.
Anyone else with any questions? Please?
Yeah. So regarding the slope in your backyard, you said that you wanted to stabilize the slope so that there wouldn't be any issues for your neighbors downhill. I think that the natural state that the slopes were in prior to deforesting it was probably more stable than having it regraded and then putting up the blocks. But with that being said, a couple of things, as you said, the code doesn't require that a wall less than or less than 4 feet in height, or roughly 4 feet in height, to have engineered plans. But I would think, given the fact that these slopes are severe, probably well in excess of 30 or 35%, that a licensed professional should really be looking at this, should be looking at the slope, should be calculating the runoff, should be calculating what the pressure is from all of the soil that this wall will be holding back, make sure that if we were to ever have a 100-year storm, that this stuff would not be washed downhill and possibly hurt or kill somebody. With respect to the site of it, or the looks of it, this is generally speaking a commercially used block that you find on a, some type of a job site or a contractor site. They're mostly used for containing material that's sold in bulk, either to other contractors or the public. Generally, in a residential area, somebody doesn't use large 2-foot by 4-foot by 2-foot blocks to construct a retaining wall. So I would think that if the board were to consider the application, at the very least, they would want some type of facing put on that block to ensure that at least the visual appeal is certainly more attractive than what's there. And secondly, I would think that they would probably feel more comfortable if a professional actually looked at your property and did some type of engineering work and came up with a plan to construct and install the walls.
I'm willing to do both. I already agreed to the facing for the block. I have no issues with that, and I can get an engineer to redesign it for engineering. And I've made that clear with the engineering department, and they pretty much said that if today you guys are okay with the slope issue variance, then move forward with that, and I'll do whatever's needed.
All right, so you'll get an engineering firm to look at the whole thing, and
Yeah,
then
I'll-
get a set of plans for us to look at.
I'll get engineering plans developed.
How long
yes.
do you think that'll take? Because we'll leave it open.
I have no idea, but I mean, tomorrow I'll call an engineering firm and find out.
April 11th? Give you a little over a month?
Yeah, I mean, is it possible that, the engineer can work on it with me if you guys approve that the hill's there and we have to do something with it, right? So that variance, if you guys can.
You have to get a set of plans. So they're
Okay.
gonna have to come out, they're gonna have to look at the area and develop
Yeah.
plans so we can look at them. I don't think you're gonna be able to get that done in a week. I mean, I don't wanna schedule for the next meeting,
Mhm.
and then you don't have the plans, so we're just gonna have to adjourn it again.
Okay.
So,
My question though is,
the end of March 28th?
that's fine, but I have a confusion. So the engineering plans, right? If I get
Right.
engineered plans, they would go to the engineering department and they would either approve it or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, you get your engineer, for your private engineer,
Yep,
then you bring those plans to the building department, they'll take a look at it,
yep.
and they'll bless it, or they'll tell you have to make changes here or changes there.
Okay, but then the variance for the slope is what you guys decide, right? Would
Right.
you not be able to give me that variance as per if the engineering approves
No.
the plans?
No, because we're worried about this retaining wall falling down.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
So the plans would still be approved by engineering, right?
Right.
All I'm saying is that if I have to come back in a month and then it just prolongs that process, I'm.
What Ed's saying is that if you're asking us to just a blanket approve the slope, we're not gonna do that. Because you're gonna then go subsequently and get a set of plans and say, this is what we're gonna do. This board, you're asking this board to approve something that they have no idea what you're proposing. So you would have to get the engineer, design it, what type of blocks are we using, what are we facing it with, how are we gonna mitigate any impacts, then come back to this board for
So
that.
then, I guess I'll make sure that I get it as soon as possible. I would say March is fine,
So we'll leave it open, and we'll adjourn it to March 28th,
28th, okay?
all right?
That's fine.
That'll give you time, okay. Okay. Let me just find, is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Sir, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Conrad Dierking. It's Dierking. I'm the neighbor directly at the bottom of the very steep hill, and my backyard faces that hill. My yard is in between his home and my home. I have three concerns about the project. First one is that the inability of the clear-cut slope to maintain the soil stability leading to drainage and erosion. A majority of the trees and brush that were there were clear-cut, and the root systems that were stabilizing the hillside are gone. After some severe rainstorms, some of those very, very large blocks have already started to slip down the hillside, and they're this long by this wide, they're huge. My children play at the bottom of the hill. My house is at the bottom of the hill. I have safety concerns about during construction and after construction if materials could potentially go down the hillside and hurt somebody. Finally, my final concern was that the area acts as a wildlife corridor. It connects Sunken Meadow State Parklands, which are directly adjacent to the property, with the residential neighborhood. And there are many species of flora and fauna that consistently traverse through that area: deer, birds, and on. And that would also be affected. And those are my main concerns about the project.
Okay. Well, that's why we're asking him to get a professional engineer to look at this,
Sure.
So all your concerns will be addressed on those drawings,
Okay.
all right?
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're quite welcome. Anyone else? No? All right, this case has been adjourned to March 28th. Thank you. What?
The next case on the agenda, case number 18867, Alex Joseph and Annie Phillip, 20 Regina Drive, Comac. The location of the property, the south side of Regina Drive, 115 feet west of Eustis Drive. The property is owned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 36 feet for a proposed 61 square foot roof over porch, to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 11 feet for a proposed 378 square foot second story addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Alex Joseph, live at 20 Regina Drive.
And I'm Christine Bryson, the architect. Hit that mic. Weird. Christine Bryson, Bryson, Post Office Box. Mr. and Mrs. are,
Could you tilt it up a little bit? Maybe that'll help? Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs., they're doing a small addition to the home, and also we're trying to expand the space a little bit, but we just want to create a porch on the front yard because they're in elementary school and ride their bikes and playing on the front lawn. So we're hoping it gives some good curb appeal. It's a slight variance for the front yard setback. I think a little bit of the side setback just because it's an angled lot, but otherwise they're only at 11% lot coverage. You know, everything else really is in line with the zoning.
Okay, fine. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application? Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
DEW has the following comments. The current application to create 5 potential bedrooms may exceed Suffolk County Department of Health standards with regards to sewage design flows. It is the recommendation of this department that the BZA withhold action on this application pending receipt of a decision from the Department of Health and completion of the required SECRA by this department. We have notified the applicant's representative of their need to contact the Department of Health. Thank you.
Okay. So you're going to
Yes.
contact the Department of Health?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no action tonight on your case
Okay, great.
until we get that. All right, thank you. Is- Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please? Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18871, Gary and Ann Ragusin, 1 White Spruce Circle, Comac. The location of the property is the southeast corner radius of White Spruce Circle. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 75 feet to 61 feet for a proposed 380 square foot roof over patio.
Good evening.
Good evening, Gary Gregson. I reside at 1 White Spruce Circle. As mentioned, I'm putting a patio in and then looking to put a 19 by 20 roof over. And reduce the minimum setback from 75 to 61.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application? Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thanks. No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you. Just to let you know, if you could just stop by before you leave, we have a question for you.
Is there anyone, anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18870, Arturo Penalvar, 281 Lilac Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Lane, 1,509 feet west of Brookside Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 21 feet for a proposed 496 square foot first floor addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Arturo, 281 Lilac Lane, Smithtown, New York. Yard reduction from 34 feet to 21.
Okay. We're a little slow getting the plans out, so bear with us.
No problem.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you. I'm showing 17 feet on the addition. Is it not this? Oh, total side, so 17 plus 4?
Correct.
Almost 5. Okay, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No? Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18873, Lauren Fazzari, 136 Birch Road, Kings Park. The location of the property is the west side of Birch Road, 175 feet south of Lincoln Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 6 feet for a proposed 720 square foot detached two-car garage.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Lauren Pizzari. I reside at 136 Birch Road in Kings Park. My husband, Michael.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Michael Fazzari. I'm at 136 Birch Road.
Okay, thank you.
We currently have a one-car garage, and we have designed a two-car garage to better suit our needs, so it would reduce the side yard from 12 foot to 6 foot.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
They do 6 feet?
It's not attached, so it's basically accessory. What was the height? Sorry, what's the height of the garage?
If I had to guesstimate, probably top of the roof line is currently 12 feet.
Do we have-
Right now, there's currently a one-car garage, so it'd be making into a two-car garage.
We did submit elevation plans, I just don't remember off the top of my head.
15 feet. 15 feet. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. The next case on the agenda, case number 18874, Russell Chertok, 43 Lincoln Avenue, Wisconsin. The location of the property, the north side of Lincoln Avenue, 80 feet east of Sun Hill Road. Excuse me, the property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to permit a fence and wall greater than 4 feet in the required front yard, excuse me, and to increase the height of a 4-foot fence on top of a 6-foot retaining wall, my God, from 4 feet to 10 feet. Decrease the minimum setback of a 6-foot retaining wall from the west side property line from 6 feet to 0. Increase the height of a 4-foot fence on top of a 6-foot retaining wall in the west side yard from 6 feet to 10 feet. Decrease the minimum setback of a 4-foot fence from a 6-foot retaining wall from 6 feet to 0 for existing retaining walls and fencing.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. We've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. It's kind of a classic case of years ago, they built retaining walls out of railroad ties. There were no town restrictions on distance from property lines. So the retaining wall was built right on the property line, and it was built 6 feet high. That retaining wall is now rotting away. It's in danger of collapsing any day. And so we come before the board because now to replace that retaining wall, because of the ordinances that are in place now, we need a variance because we need to build it on the property line. And also, the existence of the fence on top of the retaining wall, which again says, or the town's ordinance says, you got to keep the fence back. In this situation, the fence has been there for many years. It's an estate fence. We all know what an estate fence is. You can see through it. One of the concerns that we know that the town has is if you put a fence on top of a wall and the fence is opaque, either a chain link fence with slats or stockade or a plastic fence, somebody may climb over the fence and not know that you're going down 10 feet on the other side. This certainly isn't the case in this situation. Again, the estate fence has been on the top of the wall for many years now. The problem is the wall is collapsing underneath. So we have to come to the board to ask the board's permission to allow us to rebuild the wall. And again, it's an imminent danger of collapsing. Those are the reasons for the variance. Years ago, again, there wasn't any of this requirement. You could build right on the line, and you could put a fence on top of it. The town board, in their infinite wisdom, saw this could create a hazard. They were right, and that's why we're here before the board today. In this situation, we have to rebuild the wall where it is, and the fence on top of it, again, you can see through it. It's a railing fence, an estate fence, which is 4 foot on top of the 6-foot wall, but anyone that approaches that fence can see right through it and know that if you climb over the fence, which would be very difficult in any event, you're going to fall quite a distance. So it's not going to produce a change in the character of the area. This fence was, this wall was there for many years and just was made out of inappropriate materials. Again, the town, this board knows that retaining walls are no longer permitted out of any kind of materials such as wood or planking or things of that nature. It must be masonry, it must be approved by engineering. We're in the process of the engineering department approving the construction of it. It's not going to change. It's been there for many years. There really isn't no other means to achieve this method other than ask this board for the variance. Whether it's substantial, no, it's not substantial, given the fact it's been there for many, many years, hasn't disturbed anyone, and all we want to do is fix an imminent problem, and that's why we're here today before this board. Will it have an adverse effect on the environment? No, it's a retaining wall. I guess the adverse effect on the environment is the rotting wall right now. Whether the difficulty was self-created, no. When Mr. and Mrs. Chertok bought the property had the wooden retaining wall, and obviously over the years, we know what happens to wood retaining walls. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Replacing this wall, he's going to have to go on his neighbor's property, isn't he?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Is there a neighbor in agreement with that, or?
Well, we had spoken to the neighbor. The neighbor seems very concerned, and rightly so, that how are we going to protect his property? Our contractor indicates that he will protect it by virtue of putting plywood down on the lower part of the neighbor's property, do all the work necessary to create the wall, and whatever damage is created by putting the plywood on the grass or whatever, we will restore.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Hello. My name is John O'Connor, O-C-O-N-N-O-R. I reside at 34 Mayfair Road, which is the adjoining property on the southwest side of Mr. Chertok's property. The backyard, the fence in the backyard. I'm here to talk about what appears to be a 6-inch by 6-inch landscape tie retaining wall. A little history about the wall. Many years ago, about 1993, Al Hornberger, Valiant Estates, was building homes there. This is one of his homes. One afternoon, a downpour came. cascading out of the backyard, across my yard into my basement, silt and water from the house. I called Al Hornberger up. I got a problem with the grading. He says, I just sold the property. I don't own it anymore. I have no responsibility. Enter now the town, either engineering or building or both, mandated that he build the retaining wall you saw in that corner piece there. That retaining wall went alongside the house and stopped at the end of the house. Subsequent to that, the first purchaser of the property hired a contractor in St. James to extend the retaining wall further north to the northernmost end of the wall. You can't see it there. Would appear to be, again, a regular 6x6 landscape tie wall. Last summer, Mr. Churchuk, after he bought the house, he didn't buy it very long ago, I noticed that the fascia on the wall, the new part, was 2x6s. It wasn't block at all. And they were starting to peel away from the wall. Subsequent, they've started to bow out, the wall's bowing out. Fortunately, house and moving on. Can't do that now because of the damage that appears. And there are photographs in the file about, you'll see where these 2x6s are pulling out. I think it's a prudent move to replace, to demolish what's there and replace it. So, I mean, it's sensible. The concern you raise, I'm raising too. How am I protected? Because I have vegetation there. You're gonna have to take it down, and they're going to put it up with it says Verilok or Versalock block wall. I'm sure it's going to be do a professional job, but that's our concern, that we are protected, that the contractor doesn't makes it restores, because if he doesn't, I'm going to have a hell of a time trying to sell that house.
Okay.
We're heading to Mineola. And also, I don't understand, I'm told that by the planning department, there really isn't going to be a 10-foot fence on top of a wall. The verbiage said 10-foot, replace the fence with a 10-foot fence. That can't be.
It's a 4-foot fence, right? Yes. 4-foot fence on top
No,
of
it
it.
gets to the whole, and then the other issue I have, if you look on the photographs and on the plans, there are 2 trees. I'm hoping that they can be preserved. And since we're putting like a Versalock block type of wall, they can possibly go around behind the trees and not demolish the trees. But you'll see that well, in fact, you can see the trees right there.
Right.
But if they're building a block wall, let's go around and unprotected, that's all. But I think he's very concerned about the wall coming down. And frankly, the part that was done, that corner part, that's not gonna go away for a long time. But the part that's with the 2x6 construction, that should never have been allowed. And there was never a permit for any of this ever done. But the initial wall was done at the direction of the department, the building or engineering department, because, you know, Kohnberger failed to grade the property correctly. And all that silt and water in my basement got cleaned out. All right, I thank you very much, but I'm not opposed to his proposal to do it.
Okay, fine.
I think it's a good thing to do. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak on this case? No?
Well, we certainly understand our neighbor's concern, and my suggestion would be that prior to any construction, we have a job site meeting with the neighbor, with our contractor, and go over the methods of protection so that everybody's comfortable with the work to be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18875, CJV Holding Corp. The location of the property is on Woodlawn Drive in Kings Park, the west side of Woodlawn Drive, 37 feet south of Forest Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum lot area from 10,000 square feet to 9,178 square feet, to reduce the minimum lot frontage at the setback line from 75 feet to 60 feet, to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered, to permit construction within 10 feet of any slopes higher than 25%, for a 1,290 square foot, two-story, single-family dwelling for the purposes of transfer of development rights.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. We've submitted affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. The Vita family has owned this property for many years. The property is a little difficult to build on, but not impossible. However, given the fact of the program that the town of Smithtown now is involved in, we have decided, or my client has decided, rather than build there, to ask this board to grant the variances for the sole purpose of allowing a sewer transfer credit. It will have absolutely no right to ever build on the property. As a matter of fact, there is a contract for the transfer of sewerage rights, and there is a contract for to the adjacent owner of this subject property to take the property and use just for the purpose of having the pleasure of walking on the property. So there will never, ever be any construction on the site. And as the board also knows, it requires restrictive covenants to be filed in perpetuity, that the property can never be developed. The reason why we're here is we have to show the board, again, as the board knows, that we could build on it, and we can, but it really doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to basically give the property to the neighbor next door for a very small consideration and sell the development right. Again, not for what value we could get if the property were built upon, but enough to make sense for everybody concerned. So again, we've been through this a couple of times, and the only concern I think that the board has is how are they going to be sure that we're not going to build? Well, we file covenants. Nothing gets done until we do that. The town attorney has been worked on a couple of them with me in the past, so the process is relatively smooth, and we ask the board for its favorable consideration. Again, I can go through the 5 criteria, but since there won't be a change in the character of the area, it'll be the same. As a matter of fact, be more bucolic, because the property that's the developed property next door to the piece that we're asking this board to grant the variance solely, again, for development sewer rights is that's only going to be used for the person to appreciate the vacant land, I guess you could say. Whether the variance is substantial, if you look at the application, the variance itself isn't substantial. We have 9,178 square feet. We need 10,000. The setback from 75 to 60. I can go through all of this, but again, we're not going to do that. So that's why we're asking this board to help us out with this. It's going to help the community. It's going to help the town. And it'll give my client some consideration in monetary value, but certainly not if he built on the property. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Blaze to explain what TDRs are, because I think some people here have some questions.
Okay. A TDR, which is short for Transfer of Development Right, is a process by which the building rights of a parcel of land are exchanged for the land becoming sterilized or not being able to be built upon. So in other words, if somebody has a vacant piece of property and they do not wish to develop it, they can make an application if they need variances, like in this case they do, to the Board of Appeals, and ask for the variances so that the transfer of development right credit can be issued on this property. What that means is that the owner of the property now has the ability to sell this, what we call a flow right or a sanitary right, to another property owner, usually within a downtown or a commercial area that does not meet the Suffolk County sanitary requirements. It also means that the property in question is never constructed upon, never improved, and never used for any purpose other than to remain in its natural state. And that's the purpose of the Transfer of Development Right Ordinance.
Anyone on the board have any questions? No? Blaze?
I actually have a question for Mr. Tanzi because he is one of the co-authors of the TDR ordinance. I just want to clarify this for myself. I understand what it is that Mr. Tremarco's client wants to do. They want to sterilize the property. They want to be able to take the sanitary credit and sell it to someone who needs it. My question is, though, if you look at this aerial that's up on the screen, you can see that currently on that vacant parcel, there is some use of it being used by the house to the west and by the house to the south, which has a swimming pool on the property. So if the board were to approve this application, would the adjacent homeowners that are encroaching on the land have to remove the structures that they've constructed on the property?
So TDR, as I believe the town calls it TDFR ordinance, is basically an ordinance that mimics the Suffolk County Health Department requirement for TDR. Suffolk County Health Department requirement is that the lot is not only not used, can have no structures, can't be maintained, you can't even cut the grass on it. So the town is not the agency that would oversee that requirement. We're kind of a receiving agency for Suffolk County Health. They're the ones that ultimately have jurisdiction over it, and I do not believe they allow anything to happen on the property.
But it's not a requirement of this board that it be conditioned that any structures be removed?
No, because I believe TDR goes to Health Department for ultimate approval, and they would be the ones that would determine that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sabrina?
Following comments, portions of the application indicate that the subject parcel is vacant. However, as we've just seen, they're suggested that there are the presence of existing structures and encroachment on the subject parcel. This ambiguity must be clearly and accurately resolved in order to ensure full compliance with SECR and the consideration of all potential environmental impacts associated with this proposal. This department wishes to consider information presented by the applicant as well as any comments received from the public, so no decision will be made tonight.
If there's encroachment on the property, we'll get them off.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on the application? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Vincent Giovinco, Giovinco. I live at 35 Ballas Drive in Kings Park. I am adjacent to the property. I am the house with the swimming pool in the aerial. I had some concerns assuming that the property was going to be developed, but all that is obviously a moot point with the whole TDR discussion, and I understand what's going on with the property. The only thing I would ask is if that lot is deeded over to the adjacent property owner. The lot is not safe right now. I believe I sent you guys pictures. You probably have them. You can see by the condition of the lot, it's unsafe. The property adjacent is unsafe as well. And I would just ask if there should be some sort of requirement, if that's deeded over, that the property be maintained in a safe manner. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I knew you were going to
Linda,
ask a question.
Linda Fry, F-R-E-Y. I live on, it's woodland, not woodlawn. I know you guys have it wrong on the plans. Where it says, permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered. I wasn't sure what that meant. Altered, I thought, everybody thought that it was going to be something built there. So how is it going to be altered if it's going to be maintained the way it is?
It's not going to be.
Oh, okay, that's what it has on the paper here.
No, I understand. Mr. Tramarko has to show that a house could be built there.
Oh, I see.
Could be built there. So in order to build a house, he needs all those variances.
Gotcha.
So if we
Okay.
grant the variances, then he can go for the TDR. And the land would remain just the way it is.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
We have to approve he could do something, so he can do nothing.
Is there anyone else that has any questions? No? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
I got that.
I told him you were good. The next case on the agenda, case number 18872, Spacecraft Worldwide, Inc., 47 Wireless Boulevard, Hauppauge. The location of the property is the southeast corner of Moreland Road and Wireless Boulevard. Here we go again. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 42% to 47%, to reduce the minimum parking from 448 spaces to 286 spaces, to eliminate required planting islands in parking areas for a proposed two-story, 15,782 square foot addition to an existing 95,466 square foot industrial building, and a proposed two-story, 53,336 square foot warehouse with 12,540 square foot mezzanine and 1,504 square foot second floor office area.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Belated Happy New Year. Good to see you all. For the applicant Spacecraft, and it is not Will Robinson Spacecraft, David Altman from the law office of Brown Altman DeLeo, 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301W, Melville, New York, for the applicant. As mentioned, the property is known as 47 Wireless Boulevard in Hauppauge, New York. It has two Suffolk County tax map numbers, District 800, Section 181, Block 1, Lot 1, and then Block 3, Lot 1.023. Property is located at the southeast corner of Wireless Boulevard and Moreland Road. It's currently zoned LI Light Industry, as Mr. Donadio just mentioned. The property itself is pretty large in area. It is 8.42 acres, or 366,943 square feet. The property has approximately 340 feet of frontage on Wireless Boulevard, and I'm going to actually point to the color rendering on the easel to my left here. It's also up on the video screen as well. But we've sort of reoriented the drawing such that it faces north-south, so where the top of the color drawing is actually the northern part of the property, and that is where the proposed new building would be. Frontage along Moreland Road on the left side of the drawing, or up on the screen there, would be on the bottom of there, is approximately 893 feet, almost 900 feet in terms of frontage. Pretty long, deep property. Right now, the existing structure, which is located here on the southern half of the property, is just shy of 100,000 square feet, and the applicant proposes certain additions which are more fully detailed on the site plan. If the board wants me to go through the additions, I'm happy to do that as it relates to the existing building, but I think the site plan itself that's in front of you pretty clearly spells that out, such that with the additions to the existing building, the total square footage of the existing building will be 118,933 square feet. The additions, and I'll just mention them briefly, would include warehouse addition of approximately 5,861 square feet on the first floor, an office area of 162 square feet also on the first floor, and then a second floor addition of 6,320 square feet also for office space, so meaning the total additions to the existing building would be 12,343 square feet. The new building on the north side of the property has a footprint of approximately 245 by 165, or 40,425 square feet. Right now, what's on the north side of the property, if we have an aerial, or I'm sure it's in the board's packet, it pretty much looks like a baseball field out there. It is a big open green area, and when the industrial park was put in place and designed some 40, 45 years ago, that was sort of the concept, some preserving open green space. What we have right now is frankly a grossly underutilized lot, and the applicant, based upon its business needs, and I'll explain that in a little bit, has need for the addition here. The new building would consist of 39,293 square feet of warehouse on the first floor, 1,503 square feet of office on the second floor, and as mentioned by Mr. Donadio, a mezzanine level storage area of approximately 12,540 square feet. Total area of the building for floor area purposes is 53,336 square feet. It's that overall floor area of the existing building with modifications and new building, which precipitates a variance of approximately 11%, or 18,153 square feet. Bearing in mind, of course, again, a little over 2/3 of that number relates to the mezzanine area. In addition, there is a parking variance that is required here, where 448 parking spaces are required. The applicant is proposing 286 stalls, which includes 7 ADA compliant spaces as well as 22 land banked spaces. Having discussed the parking issues with planning prior to tonight's hearing, planning did not express any objection or reservation, given the fact most of the square footage here relates to warehouse itself. As with regard to the adequacy of on-site parking, I will note this for the board. The applicant operates a rather unique business here on Long Island and nationally, in that they provide large-scale promotional materials on the retail site. So for instance, if you were to, say, operate a car dealer, they would actually be able to manufacture a huge car for you to display on the lot. I recall when we were initially retained and I was getting an explanation from the folks at Spacecraft, one of the things they had done for a new car dealership down in Texas was to build them a huge cowboy hat to actually display outside of the new car dealership. So it's these types of things that they do for major nationals, and it's a national footprint. They have need for this additional space. The demand is actually that high. Getting back to parking, now that you have some understanding of what they do, there's approximately 140 employees in the Spacecraft company. There are 2 shifts, such that the majority of the employees, about 125 of them, are there in the morning shift from 7 a.m. to roughly 3 to 4 p.m. And then you have another 15 folks that will come in for the evening shift. There is also a small subsidiary for sign manufacturing on site with 10 employees. In addition, particularly around the holiday season, there are approximately, on average, 30 temporary or part-time seasonal employees that are hired to help meet demand for holiday needs. So in total, you're talking roughly 180 employees at max during the holiday peak season. Again, with the proposed number of parking spaces by the applicant, the site is more than overparked at this particular point in time. One of the things the applicant also proposes to do, and in conjunction with the planning department based upon the proposed additions, is there's going to be some substantial landscaping both along Wireless and along Moreland. I don't know if we have the landscape plan with us, but, you know, in the, yeah, there we go. All right. So we've done a preliminary rendering where we reflect some of the green space that we're going to be putting in on the north side, right on Wireless. Obviously, we'll be sitting down with the planning department before we make a site plan approval to work on an approval plan, but the idea is to substantially buffer and screen a lot of the improvements from both Wireless and from Moreland as well. There will be no change in the character of the area in that the use is already established, albeit, obviously, with the new building, there will be more built space on site. But again, the use is existing and there will be no change in use. And if one looks at an aerial photograph of our neighbors, many of our neighbors have greater or similar lot occupancy, and not only that, they're built right out to the street line. We will be maintaining pretty substantial setbacks on our build. There will be no adverse environmental impact here. The character of the area is well established within the industrial park, and the applicant does not seek to change that in any way. And while some of the variances may be self-created, that is not determinative, and I'd ask that board to take that into consideration. On balance, this is a good project for the town. It allows a unique and thriving business to further prosper and to create more jobs here in the town, and we ask that the board look favorably. I'm open for any questions. Also with me here tonight is Chris Tartaglia from High Point Engineering, project engineers, and I will also note that Jack Savilli, one of the principals from Spacecraft, is here as well. So if you have any questions of any of us, we're here at your disposal.
All right, thank you. Does anybody on the board have any questions on this application?
I guess one question would be, currently 180 employees max? Do they anticipate additional employees once this is fully built out?
That is taking into consideration, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, as Mr. Tartaglia and Mr. Altman are aware, the planning department had several meetings with the applicant, and we discussed a number of revisions to the plan. Overall, planning is supportive of the application as it stands. The only issue that we really have, I think everybody is aware at this point, there is existing right now on Wireless Boulevard a berm. I guess from grade at street level, it's probably somewhere between 8 and 12 feet in height. Originally, when the site was designed, it was designed with the intention of maintaining the berm, building the building into or building the building near the berm, cutting it out and putting in a retaining wall, so that a considerable portion of the building would be screened by the wall and by the berm from Wireless Boulevard, in addition to any landscaping that could be planted on top of the berm. My understanding is that the most recent revised plan shows that the berm would be removed and that the property would be regraded, basically from where the berm currently is, down into the area where the building would be constructed. Our concern with that is that by taking away that berm and not being able to use it in part to shield the building, and basically looking at what would look like, I guess, a bowl, if you will, that the building is sitting in, that the landscaping would have to be substantial in order to really provide any kind of screening for the building, being that it would be 50 feet in height. It is a standing metal seam building. So on the scale of attractiveness, it's certainly not up at a number 10. It's not down at a 0, but you know, it's not one of your more attractive buildings. So our concern would definitely be screening, landscaping, and preserving as much of the berm, if possible, as already there. And in the alternative, if there's some other plan that provides substantial landscaping and screening, we'd love to see it.
Thank you. Would that be an option to keep the berm?
I'm going to ask Mr. Tartaglia to address
All right.
this.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I will. For the record, my name is Chris Tartaglia. I'm from High Point Engineering. Address is 1860
Walt Whitman Road, Melville, New York, 11747, appearing on behalf of the applicant. So I am the civil engineer that designed the plans, and quite an understatement, actually, Blaze mentioned. We did meet with planning, and we appreciate your patience several times to try to get this plan correctly. But in all truth, the first plan, Blaze is not wrong. The first plan that we ran by them informally did have the wall, the roadways actually as the retaining walls, so that we would keep the grade go right up to the building, and then above that would be the walls. However, we then reviewed the plan with our architect, who said, Chris, there are fire codes and you've got to be able to get people out of that building, and essentially we needed exit doors every 100 feet along those rear walls. So then we looked at creating a retaining wall 5 feet off of the building, which then created 7 to 10 foot deep tunnel, if you will, that people would have to run through in the event of an emergency. And we didn't deem that that was an appropriate methodology for getting people out of the building in the event of an emergency. So Blaze is right on. We are essentially sinking the building down. The finished floor of the building is going to be roughly 6 to 7 feet below Wireless Boulevard. And we will vigorously landscape, and we've already been in discussions. We'll hire a landscape architect and do what we can to both vigorously landscape those frontages and make the building itself more attractive. But for the record, it does look taller, that berm that's out there. But for the record, I've got the survey in front of me. So the approximate elevation of the Wireless Boulevard is about 171 feet above sea level. The highest part of the berm is 175.8. So the berm really from Wireless is only about 4.5 feet tall. It looks taller as you're looking north, but the vista from Wireless Boulevard and from the intersection, it's only coming up about 4 to 5 feet. So we're really not cutting into it that substantially, at least from the aesthetic viewpoint.
I guess I'm really short because I was standing out in the street and I couldn't look over the top.
I don't want to comment on your height, please.
We suffer from the same handicap. I could see over it.
So, but again, just to reiterate, message received on buffering the look. We do comply with the height of the building at a maximum of 50 feet, and we do actually comply with the setbacks of over 50 feet of that building to the roadways. So no variance is needed for height or setback.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sabrina?
DEW has the following comments. The large extent of the requested floor area variances raises concerns regarding the potential for over-intensification of the use of the subject parcel. In order to ensure full compliance with SECRA and the consideration of potential environmental impacts associated with this proposal, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant as well as any comments received by the public, so no decision will be made tonight.
Mr. Chair, I just have one submission to make before we close for the night, and that's a what we call a precedent chart, which are similarly situated cases where similar variances have been granted. So I'll just hand that in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18869, Heights of Main Street, Inc., 86-88 West Main Street, Smithtown. The location of the property is the southwest corner of Main Street and Maple Avenue. The property is zoned CB. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit accessory apartments, a variance of a special exception standard that there shall be adequate off-street parking, and to reduce the required parking spaces from 42 to 21. To increase the maximum permitted stories from 2.5 to 3. To reduce the minimum front yard setback on West Main Street from 10 feet to 0. To reduce the minimum front yard setback on Maple Avenue from 10 feet to 0. To increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 60% to 69% for 4 proposed second-floor accessory apartments and a proposed 2,463 square foot, third floor addition for storage.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Trimarco. I represent the applicant. We've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. After a very long journey, I think starting in 2013, we are now at the last leg, final leg of the property known as the Heights of Main Street, Inc. This is the property across from Town Hall. It's got a long, long history, and I'm not going to bore you with the history of it, but we started off buying the lumberyard. Then we bought the buildings right next door, which is the musicology building, and then finally the corner building. And this is the subject of our application tonight, the corner building. If you'll, I'm sure you all know that the corner building contains the barber shop and has a few apartments on the second floor. One of the things that we wanted to do is make sure that the entire facade of the whole project looks the same and is a continuous sort of running application. The board was good enough to grant many variances over the years, including allowing accessory apartments, provided stores on the first floor. So now, as I said, we're at the end. This is the last one, and we're asking the board to allow the variance from 42 to 21 spaces. And one of the things that planning said was, hey, wait a minute, you're going to provide 21 spaces, but where are you going to provide them? Well, we're going to make sure that those spaces provided by our entire property. So how do we do that? Well, we do that a very simple way, just like we've done it in the past with this whole project. We covenant that no matter who owns each segment of the property, in other words, the corner segment, which we're talking about today, the middle segment, which is the musicology building, and the lumberyard segment, which, again, everybody sees is under construction. How do we protect it? Well, we protect it by covenants, and those covenants will require, again, no matter who owns the property, no matter if somebody buys the musicology building, as opposed to buying the lumberyard building, for lack of a better way to explain it, there are cross covenants for parking that can never, never, never be taken away. And that's very important because obviously we want to make sure, and the town wants to make sure, that the parking requirements are held, and that nobody in the future will say, no, we're not going to give you parking in our space, get off. So that can never happen. The other setbacks, from 10 feet to 0 and from 10 feet to 0, those are existing buildings. They're there for probably, I don't know, the 40s, even before I was born, and that's got to be a long time ago. So, and the setback from Maple Avenue, same difference. It's right on the line, because years ago, I guess they built things like they built in the city. One of the other problems that we didn't really think of at first, and we submitted our application to planning, and they said, that's all well and good. You have your parking and so forth, but wait a minute, some of the parking that you set up goes right across an area where you need cross-access. So we fixed that. We changed it, we listened, we learned, and so there is no blocking of the parking where we had it put before. We put it in another area. So, and the variance to increase the floor area from 60 to 69 is really not an excessive request. Oh, and by the way, we are asking that, that the height of all the buildings be uniform. However, the corner building, the third floor, which will show a height even with this, with the musicology building and the, for lack of a better description, the lumberyard building, will all be uniform in height, except that the corner building, that third area will only be used for storage, and I'm sure the planning department in their infinite wisdom is going to require some sort of a covenant that we cannot change that. So again, I asked the board for its, I know the board has had a lot of patience over the years with all these requests and helped beautify this whole area. We don't think it's going to change the neighborhood. We think it's going to obviously be better for everyone concerned. It's right across from Town Hall. It'll probably be the project, the main project in Smithtown, which will probably be finished by the end of the year. Whether we can create this by some other method, not really. We want everything to look the same. I think the board does, I think planning does, I think everybody does. Is the variance substantial? Yeah, if we ask for a third floor on the corner building, we would be, I think, pushing the envelope, so to speak, but we're not. It's only going to be for storage. Again, there'll be covenants galore, I'm sure. We did sit down with planning. We did accept their recommendations, and actually, it was good that they found the parking spaces blocking the access, and we changed it so that we wouldn't have to come back to this board again. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, well, those buildings, again, they're probably there 100 years, so we're trying to make it all better. It certainly will be the, again, the project for 2023. So we hope the board will give us these final variances as the board has cooperated in the past, and again, we thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so as the board is aware, planning prepared a planning advisory report. Upon review of the plan, as Mr. Tramarko stated, this property is being developed in coordination with the two previously approved properties along Main Street, and this will become, when the project is finished, assuming that the board would grant considerable favor to approving it, it would look as though we're looking at one building on Main Street in Smithtown for the purposes of some retail uses on the main floors and accessory apartments on the second and third floors, which, you know, under the town's draft comprehensive plan, is something that the town is looking to have developed within the downtowns. So in our planning advisory report, we do recommend approval of the application. And as Mr. Tramarko stated, in our infinite wisdom, we did place a couple of conditions on our recommended approval. And everybody has a copy of it within their PAR. Basically, we modified the plan slightly to show cross-access between the building that's under construction and this proposed parking area for this project, so that there is cross-access, so any overflow parking for this property does have access to the parking lot that's being constructed at the building currently under construction. We still do provide the 21 spaces that the applicant is asking to have the parking reduced to, in addition to having the cross-access. Secondly, we are looking to have a covenant filed with the Suffolk County Clerk, as Mr. Tramarko stated, that any overflow parking can be provided on the adjacent site, even if ownership of the buildings do change in the future. And the third is that, again, regarding the storage on the third floor, we would be asking that the applicant submit a covenant and restriction to the Suffolk County Clerk that limits the third floor of this building for storage only. And that is it.
Right, thank you. Sabrina?
DEW has the following comments. The large number, nature, and extent of the requested variances, coupled with the discrepancies in the applicant's sanitary calculations, which letter was sent to you yesterday, Mr. Tramarko, regarding the potential for over-intensification of the use of the subject parcel. In order to ensure full compliance with SECRA and the consideration of all potential environmental impacts associated with this proposal, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant as well as any comments received by the public, so no decision will be made tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 1-18291, Stephanie and Cody Swing, 96 Core Road, Kings Park. The location of the property is the west side of Core Road, 318 feet north of Gilmer Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the side yard, which is existing from 25% to 100%. To reduce the minimum distance from the lot line from 1 foot to 0 for the existing paving, to expand an existing lawful nonconforming structure, to reduce the minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 27 feet, which is existing, to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 2 feet, which is existing, and total side yards from 28 feet to 9 feet, for a begun prior 284 square foot second floor addition to a lawful nonconforming predated second dwelling.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Robert Swing. This is my son Cody Swing. We were in front of this board probably 2+ years ago with this variance. That unfortunately expired. We had to refile. When we were going through the process, there were some requirements by the board that we had to conform to. And part of that was septic through the health department and SEPCA, which is, I guess, part of the same thing. Both of those approvals we have gotten. There was some concern originally. We got a little overzealous, and we put a dormer on the back of the property, back of the home. We have taken that down, but this property was purchased, I think, in 2018 with a non-conforming letter of lieu with that little cottage that was occupied by an elderly woman. Once she passed, we went in there and started to do some work. So we're here trying to get it all put back together now.
You said you took the dormer down?
Yeah, we took the dormer down.
The entire dormer's down?
Well, we put it up without a permit.
Right.
And then one of the things that we discussed in front of the board was that we would take that down if we could keep the doghouse in the front of the home.
Do you have new plans? I think I'm looking at the old plans here.
I believe.
These are 20, from 2019, so these would have the dormer on it, right?
I'm not sure, can I approach?
Sure.
This is the existing home.
Right.
This is all the existing home as it was. So there was no dormer on this, no. I fired this.
Don't have the plans.
You need a set of revised plans.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I thought we had to get the variance to get the plan.
Yeah, can you go back, please?
I was under the impression that part of the process was to get the variance approved, so we can go to the building department to get the building.
Well, here's your problem. The plans that you submitted originally in 2019 show a dormer on the north side of the second floor. You were saying that the dormer has been removed. The board cannot approve your application based on these plans because it shows a dormer being constructed on the north side.
It doesn't have a dormer on it, right?
It has a dormer.
It has the dormer.
If it's the old set, that one had the dormer on it.
So they need a set of plans that shows that the dormer that was existing on the second floor was removed.
Can you pull up the pictures on the screen, just so we can all be, so, right, that's the front of the house, that's the doghouse that we put on. If you go to this view, that is not there anymore, that dormer.
We don't have any plans
Yeah,
that
but
show
it
that,
shows
though.
it on the plan. So
We don't have any
approve it, you can
photographs
build
that
it.
show that.
I get it. All right, so we have to go back and get it redesigned.
Yes?
All right.
Well, that's what we were reopening it for, was to have a new application with a new proposal for what you were going to do, I think, right?
That's correct. How long do you think it's gonna take you to get a set of plans and?
So, before he does that, maybe we should try and, rather than put you through your paces to design something that this board wouldn't ultimately approve, what are you contemplating right now?
We just want to keep that little doghouse in the front.
The doghouse on the left side
On
of
the
that
left side,
picture?
yep.
Okay. So we would need an architect to draw that up. And
All
then-
right, so that's probably going to take, a good 6 to 8 weeks, I would imagine, right?
I'm sorry?
I said I would imagine it will take a couple of weeks to hire an architect and get that all.
Yeah. April 11th?
To get back in front of you guys?
What's that?
To get back in front of you?
Right.
We can try. I
What-
mean, we can always,
Or do you want, I don't want to keep on bringing you back.
No, I get it.
We've adjourned this thing so many
I know,
times.
I know.
I'll give it to you the end of April, 25th, or May 9th.
All right, let's do May 9th, that will give us more time.
May 9th.
All right.
Okay, you have it, May 9th.
Perfect. All right, we'll see you guys then. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Do you want to open?
Just, yeah, one second, please. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
I think your neighbors.
No? Okay. This has been adjourned to May 9th. No? Yeah, May 9th. All right. We're just going to take a break.
Case number 18779, St. James Star, Inc., 889 Middle Country Road, St. James. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Middle Country Road and Huber Place. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting a special exception to permit a filling station with accessory convenience sales. A variance of a special exception standard to permit a filling station on a site less than 20,000 square feet and less than 150 feet of street frontage for both front yards. A variance of a special exception standard to increase the maximum permitted gross floor area for accessory convenience sales from 1,250 square feet to 1,404 square feet. Variance of a special exception standard to reduce the minimum required parking spaces from 15 to 6. A variance of a special exception standard to reduce the required densely planted buffer to a residence district or use from 50 feet to 10 feet. To reduce the minimum lot area from 20,000 square feet to 16,850 square feet. To reduce the minimum front yard setback on Huber Place from 50 feet to 43 feet, and to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 10 feet. Really, that's interesting. For a proposed 1,404 square foot retail building. To reduce the minimum front yard setback on Middle Country Road from 50 feet to 25 feet, and reduce the minimum front yard setback on Huber Place from 25 feet, 25 feet to 27 feet, really? For a proposed 2,400 square foot fuel canopy. Increase the maximum height of an accessory structure from 18 feet to 19 feet for a proposed 2,400 square foot fuel canopy. To reduce the parking setback on Middle Country Road from 25 feet to 5 feet, reduce the parking setback on Huber Place from 25 feet to 3 feet, reduce the parking setback from the west side lot line from 6 feet to 3 feet, to eliminate the required truck loading space, to increase the square footage of a ground sign from 40 square feet to 125 square feet, to permit a ground sign to be greater than 2 feet in height within the required corner clearance, to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 10 feet to 9 feet and the minimum side yard setback from 10 feet to 3 feet for a proposed 121 square foot, trash enclosure.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. This is an adjourned hearing. And I know there are people in the audience that are very concerned, and rightly so, about this application. I came into the application a little bit late, but I think I've come up to speed and have spoken to our architect, Kevin Papazian, who's here tonight, and I'm just going to ask him to come up and point out things as I go along and possibly ask him to give some testimony later on. I think everybody knows the site. The site is probably 1940s, 1950s vintage, old-time repair garage. It hasn't changed. Probably, again, we're talking maybe 100 years, I don't know. But it's a long time being there. It suffers from many, many, many disabilities in the sense of the sidings along Middle Country Road. If you go down one side of Middle Country Road, the south side, there are dealerships galore, everyone nicer than the other. On the north side, most of those properties on the north side have been improved over the years, only because it makes no sense at all, to leave certain things in the status quo, especially, for lack of a better term or any way to put it, it's a ratty old, many, many years old garage. It was great in the 40s and the 50s. That's what was needed then. Now, it does nothing but bring down the character of the area. However, I think the applicant, when he first came in and you saw Blaze was having difficulty reading the application, I had difficulty understanding it. I guess that's the way you have to write it to get through all this, the wording. So what happened? My clients looked at this thing, and the architect, Kevin, Papazian, had a meeting with planning. And planning, as they do, tried to help the situation. So the first thing that happened was the building in the meeting was 14, I believe 1,400 and change square feet. Need my glasses. Okay, what did I do with my glasses? Thank you. Don King would say she's my nurse, but God bless him. Anyway, so it went from, so the first thing we did was we said, you know something, you're right. It's very aggressive. So planning suggested we bring down the square footage of the building. So we did. We went from 14,004 to 1,404 square feet to 1,248 square feet. This makes the front yard along Yuba Street, and I saw that today, 50 feet. It was 43 feet. So you have the setback on Yuba Street. We did put in a basement, so the parking requirement is still 15 feet, and we still provide 6 parking spaces. So we really couldn't change that due to the reduction in size of the building. But we added a basement just solely for storage. So the parking setback along Yuba now is now 10.5 feet as opposed to 3 point, Kevin, can you point that out? Where are you? Okay, so again, you know, we thought better about it, and we said, you know what? If we're going to make this right and hopefully try and convince the neighbors who are rightly concerned and rightly giving a lot of thought about this, how do we make it better so that we can improve the area, but at the same time have some comfort, give some comfort to the neighbors so that it won't be a situation that'll create traffic, noise, and the things that most people who live next to commercial properties are concerned about. Now, the canopy height, we reduced the canopy height. It was 19 feet, we brought it down to 18. We can't bring it down any lower than 18 feet. Obviously, there are fire restrictions, there are ancel systems underneath all of these canopies, so they have to be a certain height. Now, the canopy and pump islands, first of all, we came in and we wanted 6 pump islands. Again, very aggressive. We thought about it. Again, Kevin met with the planning department. The planning department said, look, if anything, you should have no more than 4 pump islands. So we reduced it from 6 to 4 pump islands. Okay, so now the square footage, let's see, the canopy and pump islands reduced to 4. The size is now 1,740 square feet, and it was 2,400 square feet. The setback is now 38 feet from Huber, and it was 27 feet. We need a basement. We need it for storage only, so we can't change the request for parking. Now, what about the sign? Again, the sign was very aggressive, didn't make sense. So what did we do? We made the sign 40 square feet, conforms to the ordinance. And by the way, it's a monument sign. It's not a great tall sign in the air. Do you have a picture of that, Kevin?
They have it up on the screen.
Oh, okay. So, again, the sign now conforms to the requirements of the code. And the setback, the 40 square feet, it was, what do we go from? Yeah, we went from 64 to 40 square feet. Now, the setback from Hoover still remains 5 feet. So we're not talking about a sign now that's sticking in the air, and we see plenty of them all along Jericho Turnpike, and the gas station people want signs, they want location, they want this, they want that. So the best that we could do in order to change our application was to come in with these changes in conjunction with the suggestions of the planning department. There is not much more we can do with this application than what we've done now. Will there be a change in the character of the area? Sure will. It'll change from a 1940s old-time repair garage with cars parked all over the place, with noise abundant, no landscaping, no nothing, just paving, to a landscaped pump station with a complying convenience store, with a complying sign. Obviously, the requirement is a minimum of 20,000. We don't have 20,000. We couldn't get 20,000 because there never was 20,000. So I guess the question that the board, one of the questions I guess the board has to look at is what's better? What's better for the community? What's better for the area? What's better for the town? Is it to have this old-time garage? Is it to have cars parked all over the place? Is it to have repairs going on day and night? There'll be no repair garage. There'll be a convenience store, a conforming convenience store, and there'll be 4 pump islands, not 6, 4, and a conforming sign. Other than that, we can't change what's already there. Now, the next thing is, well, you know what? This guy knew when he bought this property that these were the requirements. I guess you could say that, sure. But not only does a person who does these things do it for economic gain, and we're all capitalists, and this is a capitalist country, but also if you can do something that will gain you and the community at the same time, what better deal can anybody give to the town? It's not a situation where the man just went in there and did something that he shouldn't have done. It's there. He's coming to you and he's asking for these changes. If the board decides, the heck with him, and the heck with this application, he can just stay the way he is, well then fine. Then it'll be a ratty old gas station until somebody else comes along, maybe 20 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, who knows, and makes the application again, maybe with some sort of a different approach, someone smarter than me or smarter than the applicant, I don't know. But this is the best that we can do with a bad situation. Now, I know the people are concerned, and again, and rightly so. So we tried to do the best we could so that their concerns are alleviated. Once that building is up and once it's all landscaped, there's not going to be the same conditions that there are now. People will come in and go out and get gas. They're not going to be driving up and down Yuba. There's not going to be any test cars. How many times do people in the neighborhood, even now with some of the repair garages, when they test the cars. They fix them, and then they have to drive them down the road. And the people in the neighborhoods complain, and rightly so. So there is going to be none of this. So we think, on balance, this is a win-win situation, not only for my guy, not only for the applicant, but also for the community. And we tried very hard, very, very hard, to make it the best application that we could. Now, I know there are people that are going to speak against it, and that's their right. We would also like to submit a petition. We have upwards of 350 neighboring people who are petitioning for the application. Yeah, you could just bring it up to the chairman. Again, we want to work with the people. If there's a way that we can work with them, if there's a way that we can alleviate any of their other fears or concerns, we will. But this is the choice. There are choices sometimes, they're not easy choices, but what's best for the community may sometimes, the community at large, may sometimes also be best for the applicant. So it's not just that the applicant wants to make money, sure he does, but at the same time, it's going to improve the entire area and take one more old, ratty garage and bring it up to modern standards without repairs. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration. Again, I have Kevin Papazian here if you have any questions. I think I've covered everything. Kevin, do you want to say anything? You have to announce yourself.
Kevin Papazian, professional engineer.
You can take that out.
You think, all right, good. There we go. Yeah, one of the things I would like to say, we did meet with Blaze and Pete on occasion to go over the application. As Mr. DeMarco mentioned, we did reduce the scope of the project greatly. And the one thing I will say is that if you look at the site now, the one thing that's a big improvement is how the curb cuts are set up. There is no curb cuts there on either street for the most part. There's one big open asphalt area, which I think it'll make the safety of the site better, and also the existing pump islands are actually practically in 25. If you've been out there, it's pretty close. So I think the application that we presented is the best that can be done for the size of the property and the conditions you have. And I think the architecture of the building also is in, flavor with the area where it kind of has a good look to it. I think the canopy will help with any lighting issues that might be there now, because there's no shielded lighting there at all. So that helps in that sense. And then the building where it's situated, I think also will block any traffic noise they may get from 25 will make that a lot better, having the building in the back as opposed to on the side. I know currently there is a repair garage, as indicated, also does have a convenience store, and so actually has 3 uses now, and we're reducing it to 2. I know there was some questions from Blaze about moving the trash enclosure and HVAC unit, and the applicant is willing to do that if that's what everyone agrees is the best thing to do. We did place it where it is now, just so from the street there'll be more landscaping from Huber. But if everyone agrees it should be on the other side of the building, we have the ability to move that. That's not a deal breaker or anything.
All right, thank
Anybody
you.
have any questions, just let me know.
Okay.
Six guy to put a microphone back. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's our presentation. I think the one very important thing that Kevin brought up is, right now, there's no curb cuts. You can drive out on Yuba, you can drive out on Jericho Turnpike anywhere you want. It's all flat surface. There's no traffic control at all. That's a very important issue. So that's our presentation. Thank you.
The existing tank that's there now, is that the original tank, or has it been replaced?
The tanks there now are in conformance with Suffolk County Department of Health, and they have been replaced. They are old, but they are in conformance. Suffolk County's rules is that they get tested every year, and they do, and they're in conformance currently. The tanks are being replaced with new double-wall fiberglass tanks to the latest Suffolk County standards, so that's another benefit as well. But the existing tanks do meet code, but they are about 25 years old.
Do the tanks have leak detection systems in it?
Yes, they do. I do a lot of tank stuff. Suffolk County actually has the strictest in the country because of the aquifers and so forth, so that is something to be aware of. The tanks, though, are in conformance, and any proposed tanks will have the latest leak detection and so forth and so on.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
A couple of questions, just to clarify. If you said it, I apologize. On the height for the sign, there's no need for the variance any longer?
No, that's been reduced. The square footage and the height meet code. It's just the setbacks.
Okay, and then the only other one was the parking setback on Huber. Originally, it was 25 to 3 feet. I look on the plan now, and it looks like it's 10. Is it still 3?
No, it's 10.
It's 10. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? No? Planning?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I guess this application originally came before the board, or was supposed to come before the board in October of last year. And planning had prepared a planning advisory report, and based on the review of the original submitted application, we recommended that the board not approve it. So as Mr. Tremarco and Mr. Papazian stated, we've met over the last several months a few times discussing some changes that needed to be made to the application, reducing the size of the convenience store, reducing the size of the canopy and the height of the canopy, increasing the setbacks of the parking, trying to increase the amount of landscaping that's on site, to give it a much better look than what's currently there. As Mr. Tremarco stated, what you have right now, Jeff, if you could bring up the photos, is you have a rather old site that does have a one-story building that is used as, I guess, a small office for the two pump stations that are in the front yard, and a repair garage. The site right now is probably about 85% paved. There is no landscaping, there is no buffer to the properties to the north. There is a fence there, but there is no buffer along the front northern property boundary line. As Mr. Tremarco stated, there is no curbing, there are no curb cuts, there is no way to direct traffic on the site, onto the site or off the site, whether it be from or onto Middle Country Road or from or onto Hoover Place. The proposal, as it has been revised now, provides proper curb cuts, proper on-site circulation for traffic. We do have increased parking setbacks, and if you could bring up our plan that we put up. We did make a couple of recommendations regarding landscaping to the north. We do have residences to the north. They are zoned WSI, but they are used as residences. So one of our concerns was, how do we improve the plan to reduce the amount of impact to the people to the north? And as you can see on the plan, there is a house inches off the northern property boundary line where people live. And that was one of the reasons why we recommended moving the HVAC units, moving the dumpster enclosure, get them away from the residents, and put them more towards where they could be, accessed just as easily. Overall, the plan now as it stands is far better than what it was originally. In comparison to what's on the site now, this is night and day. You would have curbing, you would have curb cuts, you would cut down on the amount of paving, you would increase the amount of landscaping, and the overall appearance of the site and development of the site would really be in conformity of the area. It would be more of a benefit than a detriment than the existing filling station, if that's what you want to refer to it as, and the repair garage. So overall, as the plan stands right now, planning is in support of the plan as proposed as of this revision.
All right, thank you. Sabrina?
EW has the following comments. The large number and extent of the requested variances does raise concerns regarding the potential for over-intensification of the use of the subject parcel. In order to ensure full compliance with SECR and the consideration of all potential environmental impacts associated with this proposal, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant as well as any comments received by the public, so no decision will be made tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're going to open it up to the audience, but let me just go over some ground rules first, please. Everyone that comes up, state your name and address for the record, spell your last name so we get it correct, okay? Before you come up, collect all your thoughts, you only get one opportunity. Everybody gets one opportunity. When everybody is done, we're going to bring Mr. Tramarko back to answer your concerns. That's it. There's no rebuttal back and forth. And then we're going to close it. All right? Who's first? Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen from the board. My name is Brendan Judge. The last name is spelled Judge. I live at 91 Cambon Avenue. My property borders the property of discussion on that property's north side. I run from Cambon Avenue to Huber Place. Now, first of all, it's been a long night, so I want to thank you all for being here. We really appreciate everything you guys do for the community. You keep it safe, you keep it beautiful, you keep it prosperous. And that is what we want to do here tonight, is keep our community safe, beautiful, and prosperous. Now, one of the main reasons myself and my neighbors are here are for that reason. We feel that this is going to be a negative impact on the community. Now, we sat here and we heard Mr. Tramarko's explanations on how everything's going to be so much more beautiful and everything else. However, it's at the expense of our property. Now, my property is, excuse me, my property is on record as being established prior to 1930, prior to the Smithtown zoning laws. That is why our property sits just inches away from the property line. My home sits currently 49 feet approximately from the current convenience store and repair shop. They are requesting that a new building be placed 10 feet within our home, from within our home. They are requesting that a dumpster be placed less than 9 feet from our home. Now, as you can imagine, that's of great concern to us. I ask you this, who's responsible for damage done to our property, both during construction and after as a result of the construction? If they proposed a large basement in this building during the digging, what if something happens to my foundation? After this building is constructed, it's close enough and it's large enough that sits on the south side of our home that will be blocking the majority of natural sunlight that comes to our home. That would increase oil consumption, increase electric usage, increase issues such as mold on our roof, and so forth. Sorry, excuse me, I got a little lost. So with that, these requests are excessive and substantial. All right, there's a number of requests that are percentage-wise is just astronomical. These requests, an improvement on the property can be obtained by remodeling the current building in its current location. As you said before, there's a repair shop on the back portion of this building. You can assume that repair shop is no longer intended to be there. Once you remove that repair shop from the current building, you're increasing the square footage that is desirable to become a new convenience store. They can beautify that and as much as they want, add to the community in that way without disrupting the property value of the surrounding homes, the traffic, without increasing environmental pollution, noise pollution, and without further detriment to the community. So I ask you, as you hear the rest of everybody else speak here tonight, I ask that you remember that these negative implications that we gave you here tonight when you're trying to make this decision. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi.
I'm Andrea Judge. I reside at 91 Cambon Avenue. Okay, so I'm going to try to not repeat, but basically this is an undesirable change to our neighborhood and decreases property value. There is no need for a larger gas station in this area. Plus, environmentally, we are moving away from gas. The proposed building is less than 10 feet away from our physical house and property line. The approval would be a substantial one. If approved, it would set precedent for other commercial real estate owners to ask for substantial variances. Hours of operation bring in individuals late night, increasing noise, light, garbage, and more possibility of crime and vandalism into the neighborhood. Lights and signage. Our house would be affected by lights shining directly into our home at night. We have a 13-year-old son, and his bedroom is on the second floor that faces the current station. The proposed area for the dumpster is less than 9 feet away from our house. A larger gas station and convenience store has more waste, increasing bugs and rodents. The close proximity is a total disregard for our home. The space is too small for a gas station this size. It is 3,000 square feet less than the 20,000 square feet. There is no need to try to make this fit on this lot. A gas station was proposed on Hillside and 25 on a bigger lot with residential set back further, and it was denied. Is this being considered because it's already a gas station? Respect for the residents, a larger gas station would pose even more disruption during crises such as storms. During Superstorm Sandy, there was no regard for residents next to the current station. Cars were lined up, blocking our driveways and causing traffic issues. The owner never set cones or had an attendant directing cars to alleviate disruption. Why would this change with a larger station? And I ask, we're talking about a station that is falling apart. Why has this not been no upkeep? If the owner is so concerned about our community, how come I'm here 13 years, there's never been any upkeep on the property? The owner is dressing this as a remodel and being a community member. If the owner sells the property to a gas station chain, then what is ensuring any agreement would be honored? The owner has had opportunity to purchase. Our property was up for sale and his neighboring property was up for sale within the last 10 years. If the idea was to expand, why wasn't these properties bought? And we're zoned commercial. Lastly, I just ask, would you want these proposed variances next to your home? Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us. I'm Charlotte Zeman, Z-E-M-A-N, 18 Hubert Place, St. James.
And I'm Daniel Zeman, 18 Hubert Place.
Again, thank you. It has been a long night, and we have been working on this for months, so thank you for hearing us. As residents of our very quaint St. James on Hubert Place, we are seriously concerned about driver and pedestrian safety. We oppose all variances that are proposed by St. James Star, as they would be undesirable changes. We ask the town to conduct a miles per hour evaluation due to commercial high-speed rates in a residential community. Vehicles currently stop short to turn into the gas station and onto Hubert Place. Please note the previous accidents, critical injuries, and even fatalities at the corner of Middle Country Road and Hubert Place, exacerbated by limited visibility since businesses and customers park on Hubert Place throughout the day and night. Examples of accidents include recent release of video and documents pertaining to the 2020 vehicle crash right in front of the gas station where a toddler was seriously injured. Unfortunately, that family has since moved out of the area as it was too detrimental to their lives. As I walked around the neighborhood talking to friends, as I'm a very long time resident of St. James. Every time I bumped into a friend, I'd say, "Oh, have you heard about what's going on in the gas station?" And they said, "Yeah, wow, the gas station's being remodeled." I said, "No, it's actually being demolished." And I proceeded to go over the variances. At which point, on 4 different occasions, my neighbors and friends have all said, "Wow, I was in an accident at that corner." And a teenager, "Wow, my car was totaled." Another young adult, "Oh, I had a near miss." And then, another person who I had seen the accident, the person was trying to pull out of Jiffy Lube, which is across, and because of the parked cars on both Middle Country and Huber, either vehicle couldn't see each other, and there was a collision. So we're asking to please consider these cases. Are there provisions for pedestrian safety as they wait for public transportation on Middle Country Road? Because we do have Jiffy Lube, Chevy, and the gas station right there. Or even as local residents cross the street from Cambon Place onto Huber Place. We need a crosswalk. I know that the curbs were just, you have all that construction and curbs are in place, but where's the crosswalk? Have St. James Star, the town of Smithtown, Suffolk County, required the New York State DOT to establish a 2-way left turn lane at the intersection of Middle Country Road and Huber Place? Has St. James Star, the business, filed an application for the state right-of-way? We petition for these essential changes for the safety of St. James residents and for all who travel through the area. To continue, the proposed site plans for 889 Middle Country Road in St. James shows a gross overestimation of size for the lot. The property is too small for the variances requested, plain and simple. Though we could appreciate they were so kindly to decrease the number of pumps, it's still too many pumps for that lot. What are the plans for the water collection system so the runoff doesn't create excessive water on the ground from the canopies? What is the height of the light poles? The site plans state that Hess would be providing the poles. At least that was the site plans that we were privileged to see in October. When I was there on Friday, when I was in the office on Friday, February 10th, all of the plans that I had seen, the site plans, were from October. Apparently, when I left, the new ones must have come in. So we're not privy to at least the height of the light poles, and who would be providing them. So to go along with that, light. What time will the property lights be turned off, and who will enforce the schedule? We'd like to thank you for addressing the crucial concerns mentioned in email communication, as I know that myself and my neighbors have emailed the department back in October. And so we'd like to thank you for addressing those concerns and all of our questions through email and also here. To point out, please, I have to go back into my email to see if I had scanned and sent you our petitions that were signed. So when my neighbors and I walked around the neighborhood, we had pages and pages of local residents supporting us in opposing the variances. And again, I just have to check my email to make sure that those attachments were sent to you. We value our quality of life as residents of St. James, where St. James Star has made substantial requests with detrimental impacts on the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You made it.
I did. It's been a long night. My wife is probably going to give me hell that we didn't go out for dinner tonight.
We'll
but-
give you a note.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sal Riccobono, Riccobono. I live at 93 Cambon Avenue, right next to the Judge family. My concerns basically are noise and the lighting. Is there a specific height that the canopy has to be in terms of, you know, where the lighting's going to be and everything? I don't know if I believe the proposal was 18 feet.
We'll get that information for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the noise. I didn't hear anything about any plantings of any kind to block out all the houses north or west of the property that they're talking about. The gentleman from the planning said that this proposal is night and day. Well, I got that. I don't want to have daytime in the nighttime because I will certainly hear everything and I will see that illumination in the sky. They mentioned about all those signatures they have there. I don't know if addresses are on there, but more than likely, there's probably no one on there that lives within maybe 300 feet of the location. So those are my concerns that need to be addressed, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Who's next? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you? Chairman, members of the board,
Excuse me, can you just introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. First name Christopher, last name Fantine, F as in Frank, Antine. I reside at 136 Cambon Avenue in St. James, New York.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, town officials, and counselor, I'd like to wish you a happy Valentine's Day, first off. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to speak with you at this meeting. I agree so far with everything that was stated against the revitalization of the current St. James Star gas station. I'm going to start you off with a couple of comments and concerns that I have, and maybe even some possible solutions. The proposed gas station pumps are facing in the wrong direction. Facing north and south, the cars will be facing towards the building while traffic flow will be east to west, making it impossible for any vehicles to maneuver. The requirement of the town is 15 parking spaces. That's one space per 100 square feet plus the basement. Yet the proposal is only 6 parking spaces. One is an employee parking spot and one is a handicap parking space, leaving 4 for customers. People will not park in the parking spaces, but will park in front of the store and the loading space, which will completely block traffic flow. When the fuel truck does arrive, it will block the east side parking spaces and also block traffic flow out of the gas station. The 23-foot proposed roof height will block sunlight to the residents behind the station because of the proposed 10-foot distance from the property line of the building. Stairs to the basement on the west side of the building has no locked gate, and that might lead to unwanted residency at the gas station as well. According to the site plan, there is no sign that will indicate any gas pricing. If one is established, it could impede any traveler's view on Jericho. If the street sign is erected, again, this will impede a traveler's view. There is no entry-only or exit-only sign to designate any traffic flow. People might use Huber Place to enter the gas station, which might cause issues for residents who live on Huber Place. If the fuel truck is at the station when someone is pulling in from Huber Place or exiting the station, it would render it impossible for them to get in. There are no plantings indicated on the final revision running along the north side of the property. Digging of the basement and new fuel tanks might be an issue to the foundation and pool of the house just behind the gas station. The existing gas station plans to remove the existing mechanic shop. If you take the square footage of the original building and add 8 feet to its length on the east side, you will match the square footage of the proposed new building. The neighbor behind will then not suffer the consequence of moving the building further back. According to the proposed building front facade, it shows that it will be glass along with side entrance doors. Due to this fact, this decreases the overall display capability, where the square footage of the old building and adding 8 feet to the east side would provide more display capability. People will park in the designated handicap and loading zone illegally should we take pictures and provide those to public safety. And not only is this site plan horrifyingly wicked, but the proposed name of the St. James General Store is also terrible. This site plan receives a D-. There are 2 reasons I give this site plan a D-. Reason number 1, if I gave it an F, you wouldn't believe me. And reason number 2, I had to give the individual that drew it some kind of credit. Regarding the name change, according to the site plan and the drawing of the building's front facade, the name being proposed is St. James General Store. We already have our St. James General Store located on Mauritius Road, and I brought with me a picture of our beautiful St. James General Store. A historic landmark, a quaint place to be taken back in time. Our St. James General Store was established in 1857. This will mark our general store at 166 years old in 2023, and is still operating today on a daily basis. If the revitalized gas station was to proceed with the name St. James General Store, when tourists and individuals seeking to visit our historic general store research it, they might not see our beautiful general store. They might see and show up to a gas station. Changing the name of the gas station to anything similar to our historic landmarks will tarnish St. James's rich history. St. James as a town embraces its history. Many of these historic landmarks include, but are not limited to, Deep Wells Farm Historic Society, the St. James Railroad Station, and the Timothy Smith House. In conclusion, we need to embrace St. James's rich history and not use our historical sites' names to only benefit those that care about themselves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to provide you a table with a site plan that I had marked up with many of the problems and issues and concerns.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. I don't know what I signed that petition as. My name is Gabrielle Tagneri, but I'm Gabrielle Tagneri Geib. Last name is spelled G-E-I-B, as in boy. I'm kind of like Switzerland on this case, but most and foremost, I want to say that I use that man's gas station probably about 3 to 4 times a week. I am a resident. My address is 25 Sailor Street. I am the lot that was supposed to be the new gas station. But I live there now, so that's not happening. I think that that man should have an updated store. Absolutely, 100%. But I don't think it should be on the judge's behalf. if you actually drive down our streets, you would know that they're quiet, low dimmed, lighted streets because we love our neighborhood to be quiet. We don't lock our doors most of the time. I know I don't. But if you drive down that street, you would see that the judge's house is not a normal house on any street. It is actually faced towards the north, and the back is to the south. And they actually harbor both streets. And I would never, ever want to be against the man.
Excuse me, could you just address the
Sorry,
board, please?
but I would never want to hurt that man right there. I mean,
Could you
he.
just address us,
I'm
please?
sorry, but when I'm saying this, I know that I'm hurting that gentleman's feelings. And I never want to do that because he is a good person and he deserves to have this door that he wants. So just please, just let me say what I have to say.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, just take a break for a minute.
Okay. I'm a very emotional person, and I think that this is a real injustice to the judges. As a family, as a mother, as someone that owns a house in St. James, I'm going to ask you this one question, and I want you to close your eyes and think if it was your house and the plans that are being right in front of you. Would you like your grandchildren, your children, your children's friends, or if you're having a barbecue on a Sunday, do you really want a gas station less than 10 feet away from your property, your home? And again, like they're saying, there is nothing in the plans that say that those people deserve to have a commercial structure 10 feet away from their house. And if you think that you would enjoy that as your next door neighbor property, then please say yes. But if you have a doubt in your mind, please say no. Please. We don't want St. James to change. We don't need bigger structures. We love our quiet, cute St. James Star gas station the way it is. If they want to approve the property that they already have, then please approve it. My name is on both of their signatures, and you can strike mine from that because that is not what he said. And I say this with all due respect. In his gas station, he said on the clipboard right next to when you pay, we are going to build up our convenience store, make it better, sign it. I did sign it. I put my address on it, I put my phone number on it, I signed it because I believe that man deserves a better store. But it wasn't until Charlotte, my neighbor, came around my house and knocked on my door and told me the real plans, I was disgusted. I was so disgusted that he wasn't trustworthy. He wasn't honest. He was not portraying what we want. And he didn't do that honestly to the customers of that store that came in. And that's one thing that is 100% wrong with this. They don't deserve that. Their 13-year-old son doesn't deserve it, and I live exactly 175 feet from the gas station, and I would not want it if it was in my own backyard. And I don't think anyone on that board that's sitting right here in front of me would want the exact same thing. So please do not let it as it stands. Please ask them to change the plans. Ask them if they want their freaking basement. I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse. I'm sorry. If they want the basement, let them have the basement. If they want to improve the structure, let them improve the structure. If they want to garden it up, and just so you all know that he has his own herbs, plants, tomatoes. He has a garden of his own in front, and that is the only structure that is landscape. So if you want to make it nice and beautiful for St. James, please, I continue. let that happen. But do not move that building, because if you do, you're going to make everyone in St. James loud, angry, upset, just like I am. I am appalled that anyone would allow a gas station being 10 feet from someone's home. You won't want it, we don't want it. We want to keep St. James nice and quaint as it is. Our Main Street is nice and quaint. If you want to, please, don't do this to the judges. Let him have his gas station, and what everyone's saying is true. The garage is going to be gone. If they want to build a new structure a couple feet away, dig that out, make it all nice, but you don't have to move it out. There are other ways to make it right. You don't have to make the judges unhappy about their house. They're happy with it as it is, and that's the only thing I'm going to say. Keep it as it is and change the plans to make the existing property stay the same with changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
I'm Amy Tiu, spelled T as in Thomas, I-U. I live at 17 Huber Place, across the street from the judges. I just want to speak about the current size of the gas station. On almost any given day, when walking out of my house, the front yard is often littered with debris, or my driveway's littered with debris, whether it be vape cartridges, lotto tickets that have been scratched off and just disposed of. It's highly likely that it came from the gas station. So my concern is that a bigger convenience store would only yield more debris. We pay a good amount of taxes, and to have to deal with picking up litter, use vape cartridges, what have you, is just something that's disconcerting as a resident in a very quaint neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Ken, same last name, same address. I guess my concern has already been brought up, which is the parking. So it was concerning to me to hear that they were going to reduce the parking. I guess the standard allotment is 15 spots down to 6. And it was brought up earlier also about the one will be handicapped, one will be employee parking, leaving only 4 spaces. As of right now, there's a lot of parking on Huber Place and on the main road in front. I could see with 4 spaces and a lot more people coming and go from the store, that being a concern and an issue. Like landscape trucks will pull up and they'll block the view from Huber when you pull out to run into the convenience store as it is. If the convenience store is bigger, more people are coming, more landscape trucks, more cars. I just don't see that as being good for us living on Huber Place. And also without a loading, I think they were going to get rid of the truck loading area. Well, that's another thing. If they're bringing product into the convenience store, they got to park somewhere. So, likely they're going to park on Huber Place or in front of the store on the main road, which I think also would be a concern. So I don't know if those were addressed in the, maybe you addressed them, but I didn't really hear it. We want to see the owner be successful. We don't have anything against his business. We'd love to see him do really well, but not at the expense of the surrounding neighbors. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Come on up, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Nicholas Videtto. I live at 134 Cambon Avenue. That's Videtto, Nicholas. I want to say what they described as the new building, it does sound terrific. However, my concerns are, and I don't have a problem with the building the way it is now. It has a certain old world charm, and Gary supplies a real functionality to the neighborhood, helping people out with their cars. So I think that's really great. I don't have a problem with it. But my concern is that when you come up Cambon Avenue and approach Jericho, when you look to the right, you can't even see because there's cars parked along that used car lot. And then when you look to the left, sometimes there's signs up and flags. You can't see to the left either. So as it is right now, there is no curbing, okay? And I do agree that's going to make things a lot safer, and I think it's going to be very important. But the question I have for the committee is, are you going to be putting up any traffic lights? Because if you go up the block about a mile where you have Sunoco, across from Honda, there's 2 blocks there really close to one another, and what you're going to essentially do, you're going from 1 island to 4, so that traffic's going to quadruple going in and out of that place. It's crazy enough now just trying to pull out of Cambon Avenue. So I think a light or 2, I mean, I'm against the adding lights too and signs and everything else around here, but in this course of getting safer, it seems like it would make more sense because there's no traffic control in that area right now at all, and you're talking about making it even worse. So is there anything in the plans here at all for adding a light on Cambon and maybe one on Yuba?
No, that's not, we don't do that.
I see. Yeah,
I would imagine Department of Transportation.
yeah, okay. So the only thing discussed here tonight is whether or not they're
The
gonna,
only thing we're discussing tonight is the variances.
yeah, okay, all
Yeah.
right, I just wanted to
But
speak.
you can call up the Department of Transportation.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Tough sitting this long, right, isn't it?
Yes,
Oh, good evening.
good evening.
Thanks for staying so late with us tonight. My name is Anna Lopresti. I live at 16 Huber Place in St. James. I am 3 houses away from the gas station. Sure, I'm sorry, Lopresti. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Salvatore Lopresti. I also reside at 16 Huber Place in St. James.
Although I emailed my responses and the objective data behind it to the board,
We have it all here.
you've got everything. No need for more copies. Okay, terrific. I'm here for 3 reasons. First, I'm happy to address any questions you might have about that data, either now or going forward.
No.
Nothing, okay. Secondly, as others have stated, it's important for the board to know that we support our local businesses. We want them to grow, and we want them to prosper, as is evident from the number of people who signed that petition in favor of it. However, I'm certain those who signed had no idea about the research that I shared with the board, which falls under variance considerations number 1, the detriment, and number 4, adverse effect. And I'm measuring my words for the sensitivity of this all. Lastly, I want to thank the board for their time in reviewing the information I provided. And I'm hoping for a positive support in your decision here.
All right.
Oh, one more thing. The technology.
Yeah, could you speak into the microphone?
Sure,
please?
one more thing, I'm terribly sorry. The technology to address the issues in the research that I shared with you does not exist right now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Who's next? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for taking time to hear all of us and our concerns. My name is Edward Wozny, W-O-Z-N-Y. I am the son of Charlotte Zeman, but reside at 231 4th Street, still in St. James. Take a moment and look at me. I'm 24 years old. My mom lives on Huber Place. With an increase of traffic, imagine the worst. Hearing another young person die from a tragic car accident that could have been prevented. Someone being me, someone else around my age, someone younger. As is, there's narrow traffic flow throughout that area. Commercial vehicles, parked cars, visibility low at times, turning down the streets that full of cars, people flying down the streets even. So I definitely agree that there needs to be something done in that area. Stoplight, crosswalk, you name it. You know, we walk our dog down those streets. Cars flying by. That's only going to get worse. Now, a little bit about my background. I have degrees in environmental science, and I'm in the public health sector. So I would like to address some of those concerns. I've done my fair share of research over the course of my studies into the effects of air quality on human health. An increase of traffic for cars that decide to idle in the area, or just in general, causes a lot of air pollution. That air pollution has shown in several research publications, especially in high trafficked areas, to have increase in asthma, other types of cancers. How are we going to address that? We're also, as mentioned earlier, moving away from fossil fuels. How are we going to address that when we're putting in more pumps? I'd also like to point out that not too far down the road on Middle Country and Lake Avenue, there is currently a shutdown gas station that just has fencing around it. That's ugly. Very ugly. The increase in potential rodents, public health concern for diseases, any standing water, public health concern for diseases in terms of mosquitoes that bring various viruses that have been shown to terminate pregnancies early, cause different fetal defects. That being said, Zika in particular, that has been shown to be moving up as weather's relatively warm. As someone in the public health sector, I can't help but to also think about water. We live on an aquifer. We use our aquifers to get water. This type of stuff, gas stations, pipelines, you name it, they're prone to leaks. How are we going to address that when it happens? I'm not saying if, but when, because it's going to happen. How can we also limit the effects of different debris in the demolition of the building? That building is old. Could be asbestos there, with people here living right next to it. Again, I'm for, building it up, making it look nice, but there are other ways to do it than this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, he didn't talk.
The name is Thomas Fantine. address 136 Cambon Avenue, St. James. I've been in this town for 69 years, my whole life. Okay, my father has been in this town since 1930. He went to the Wisconsin School, the red brick building next to the Wisconsin School. His family used to come out here in the summer months. Okay, I just want to say this is like putting a quarter in a penny slot. Okay, it just doesn't fit. Okay, Mr. Tramarko said that there's no traffic control, okay? And this improvement will make traffic control there, okay? People now go in the wrong direction, okay? They go in any which way they want. Even if you made the entrance an entrance and the exit an exit, they're not going to follow it. They're going to go in any which way they want. Okay, we have car dealers that bring their cars from the dealership to the station. They don't have plates on it. There are no plates in the vehicle, illegally on the road. That's not his concern, but they have all these cars that are constantly moving in and out. And as my son had stated, adding 8 feet to the existing building on the east side of the existing building would solve this whole thing without moving the building. Okay, he can beautify the outside. I've never heard somebody complain that, oh, there's no canopy, my hair's getting wet, or this, that, and the other thing. I don't think that's the people's concerns that have been going there. The concern would be having this monstrous thing in front of that station that would not beautify the area, okay? And possibility of additional robberies. We've had a couple of robberies at the gas station already, okay? It can only maybe increase. Also, Department of Transportation, I looked on their website, they do propose to make a change, put an overpass over 347 and County Road 97, that's Nichols Road, where the college is. Okay, their intent is to improve the travel on 347 to Northern State. Okay, now they've already done the widening down in that area, and yet even though they did that widening, they're going to be putting an overpass over it. Okay, so that doesn't mean that just because they did these improvements on 25 and 347, that in the future they won't put that overpass over Jericho and 347. So if they do that, there'll be a problem because we have a merge lane coming on there on Jericho, just off of 340, just off Jericho, just west of 347. Okay. And if they eliminate that merge and make it a double lane highway, a lot of those buildings might be threatened. So I'm just saying, add 8 feet to the present building, to the west side, problem solved, neighbor's not threatened, he gets his full square footage he wants, people aren't concerned about a canopy, and the whole neighborhood will be happy. 8 foot, problem solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Once I bring Mr. Tramarko back, that's it. Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Al Baccio, 104 Cambon Avenue, BOCC, IO. Okay, about 20 years ago, I was stopped on Jericho by Cambon, making a left-hand turn to go into Cambon to come into my house. I was hit from the rear by a car. They hit me hard enough that I flew from that point at the intersection there into the gas station. Do they have, of the 4, what are they having, was it 4 stations there or 4 pumps? How many cars do they service within an hour or so? So those cars are going to go onto Jericho. They're going to decide to go east or west as they're pulling out, while the cars that are on Jericho going east deciding whether or not to go in or out the same gas station. So now, when I'm at the end of Cambon, I look to my left, because now you hardly can make a left-hand turn off of Cambon. What's going to happen now? So now I wait for the light to change down the other end at the intersection of 347 and Jericho. And I say, wow, the light changed, so now I got a little time to get out. But now there's cars in the gas station popping out and cars on Jericho popping in at the same time. So probably a study should be done before anything is done. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? No one else? All right, Mr. Tramarko?
First of all, I want to thank all the people here tonight that came in opposition. I don't even know how to say it. Everybody was very respectful. Everybody was decent. Nobody beat me up tonight. That's a good thing. So I'd just like to answer a few points. Young Mr. Fantine said something that was very, very relevant, and I'm working kind of backwards. He said, St. James General Store, what's going on? That same thing I said. And I said that to my client. He said, I don't know how that got there. I said, you can't do it, period. End of story. First of all, you know, we're not going to get into trademark or patent law or whatever. He's not, absolutely not, going to use anything like St. James General Store, St. James Store, nothing. So, and it was a very valid point. And again, I don't even know how my client or how it even got there. I asked my client and he said no. Okay. Number two, Mr. Judge and Mrs. Judge were concerned, and rightly so, about, well, what happens when they build over there? What about my house? It's so close. Well, first of all, my client, the contractor, and the client would absolutely be responsible for any effect, any adverse effect on the judge's property. And certainly we understand that. And there are ways of construction. Obviously, I don't know how to do it, and but there are ways that you build where support is made so that you protect adjoining properties. It's done every day. So, and again, my client would absolutely be responsible, and I'm sure all the people in the audience know that to get a building permit, you have to have insurance, you have to have qualified people, especially in the town of Smithtown. So, and which brings me to the point that I think it was the last young gentleman who brought up another very valid point. Well, what about asbestos? This is an old building. There's no chance that there's not asbestos in that building. There's got to be asbestos in there. It's that old, the roofing, the siding. Who the heck knows? The old-time asbestos shingles that they bang off and they got friable, whatever they call it, stuff. That all has to be done with permits. So the first thing that happens is an asbestos investigator investigates. They find asbestos. Okay. Then a remediator comes in and has to remediate the entire site before it's demolished. So that's the protection that the neighbors have, and they should have. And that's been done many times in the town of Smithtown. And believe me, they are so strict about it that there's really no way to get around it, nor would we want to. Question was brought up with, I think by the gentleman with the baseball hat, and had a couple of good questions. He said, what about water collection? Well, during the site plan review process, all water generated that falls on the site has to remain on the site. That includes water that falls on the canopy, which is drained down with drains into dry wells. Again, it's all done by site plan and site plan approval. So there's no getting around it, there's no doing what you want to do. It's you do what the town does or you don't build. That's just the way it is. What about the lights from the canopy? There are rules about lights. Lights have to be down in a downward focus and cannot emanate from the site. Again, that all has to conform with the town's rules, town rules and regulations. So, and even if we didn't want to, we would have to. We'd have to conform with every one of those rules. So I guess it's a weighing situation. We believe that this is the best thing for the community as well as the best thing for our client. We've worked with planning to do the best job we can under the circumstances. You've heard the planning department's recommendation. I'm not going to waste any more time. Again, I really mean it. I thank the audience for their respectful way that they objected tonight.
I have a couple of notes here.
Sure.
What are the heights of the light poles?
The height, I'm sorry, do you know? Go ahead.
Right now, they're proposed to be 15 feet, and we get to work with planning on it anyway, and we'll work with Blaze and his group to make sure that, but the one thing about lighting is that we have to provide a illumination plan to show that 0 lights can cross the property
They'll
line.
have to be shielded.
Yeah, they'll be shielded, and 0 lights will be crossing the property line. That'll be a requirement that planning usually does promote for all commercial properties, especially adjoining residential.
And the canopy height again was?
The canopy height, the underside of the canopy is only 15 feet.
Okay.
The top is 18 feet, but it is going to be shingled. It's going to be like the new look that I know Smithtown's been pushing on gas stations to have a better look to them. It'll have that same look, similar to the, I don't know what it is. This is a bowler that's down on 25, down on by Great Jones and 25. It'll be the same canopy as that with the brick, a brick on it. It'll have all that, the same look.
I think someone asked for hours of operation.
Come up. Introduce yourself first.
Aydin Azdemir, Ozdemir. I never like to do 24 hours. I mean, there's no need that. Right now, I do 7 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. at night. So I guess we're gonna stay around that situation because that neighbor, residential neighbor, so we don't wanna be, like we are expressway or something.
Okay. Is
So
that 7 days a week, sir?
7 days a week, yes. Thank you.
But I just may add one thing. I know everyone's talking about the Route 25 because it's a state road. We have to go to the New York State DOT and get approvals from them. So everything we do, access as it's shown, has to be approved by state DOT. And we are proposing sidewalks, so that will make things better. I know there's no sidewalks now from Camden to Huber, but that will be in front of the station. We'll have proposed sidewalks, and it'll be ADA compliant. And the state, from a conceptual standpoint, is okay with this right now. They are doing improvements just to the east of this, towards 347. I think that might have been mentioned. Their work zone ends before this right now, but they actually like that we're going to, therefore, putting designated driveways in. They don't like the way it is right now. That's non-conforming.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it,
That's
Mr.
it?
Chairman, members of the board,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.